Hello everyone, welcome to Byte That's weekly wrestling podcast, a show where we talk about the latest, the greatest, the many hours of the WWE. My name is Ryan McNulty. I'm hosting today's show as Juan has some commitments and he could not be here today, but we've got plenty to talk about with Clash of Champions coming up this weekend. Of course, joined alongside me from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, Mr. Keith Poshik.
You know, you might say our star is shining a little less this week.
Yes, we do not have a shining star this week, but this week didn't just have one hurdle with Juan being gone. No. I come home. I'm actually home earlier than usual, ready to do this podcast. And Windows 10, don't get it if you don't have it yet, folks, decides to do a 50-minute update to just delay this podcast even further and create new challenges.
So with all odds against us, we are here.
Yes.
We're going to talk about some wrestling.
We John Cena this. We saw some odds and we overcame them.
That we did.
So as our second podcast on a Wednesday, we're
not used to it, by the way.
Yeah, still not used to it. We're happy that we can compare Raw and Smackdown. So before we actually get into the nitty gritty of both shows, we're just going to kind of look at, Raw versus Smackdown. We like to go to you guys in the Twitter sphere and poll you guys on our patented 1 to 4 scale about which you thought, rating each show on its own, and then we like to compare the results. So for Raw, we had 18% giving it a 1, as in terrible, 50% said it was okay, 18% pretty good, 14% great. So that comes out to, we like to look at 3 and 4 as the positive rating. So 32% gave Raw a positive rating. For SmackDown, we had 8% bad, for number 1. Number 2, 32% saying it was okay. For number 3, 35% saying pretty good. And for 4, 25% amazing. So then this is a 60% positive rating. So almost double. So SmackDown, unsurprisingly, wins the week again. So Keith, just looking at Raw versus SmackDown this week, are there any differences or things you'd just like to highlight just on a high level before we actually dive deep into things?
I just think that this poll is spot on this week. I would honestly say that SmackDown was about twice as good of a show as Raw this week, as far as how much of the the duration of the show I actually enjoyed. And good job, Twitter sphere.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, people might say, oh, it's the third hour that really kills Raw, but I think there's a lot of just little things that SmackDown has just been doing right, and it's just more fresh. And maybe
I was thinking about that today. Mm-hmm. Think about Monday Night Raw. If you cut out the worst 60 minutes of that show, I would still say SmackDown was the superior show. Like, take the worst parts of Raw, remove it from the equation, think about the rest of it, and SmackDown was still a better show this week.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you. And a lot of people are speculating that the head writer for NXT is now heading up SmackDown. And maybe that has to do with a lot of sense. The more logical storytelling that's going on SmackDown. I think that is one of, if not the most important factor. Number 1, contenderships are a thing. Follow-up on storylines from previous weeks is a thing on SmackDown. And I think it's going a long way.
So out of curiosity, when you think SmackDown, do you incorporate talking smack into that?
I do not incorporate that, although that is a great show. I mean, let's just get into talking smack right now since you brought it up. It is something I wanted to talk about on this show. I missed the first few weeks of Talking Smack, and I heard people, talking about how interesting it was and how cool it was. And then obviously the whole thing with The Miz and Daniel Bryan happened, and I was like, okay, now I gotta see this show. And I haven't missed a week since. It's so refreshing, and a lot of times you'll get just even more. They try and flesh out some of these stories more, but there's like a hint of realism in there too. Every guest that has been on Talking Smack, I feel like I've enjoyed them more. I've gotten to appreciate them more for being on it. It's just a really fun show, and I look forward to it every week. It's the one piece of extra content a lot of times from WWE that I actually get excited to see.
Agreed. As somebody that's not a big fan of the Raw and SmackDown pre-shows, I love Talking Smack. It just has that different feel, and it really lets you get like a sense of the actual character and the people on SmackDown. Like Apollo Crews was on it a couple of weeks ago. That 3 minutes that Apollo Crews was on it did more for Apollo Crews than his entire run since he debuted after WrestleMania. It's crazy that way. Or how this week there was Carmella, and you could almost see Daniel Bryan like prodding Carmella, like, come on, go deep into your character. Let's hear your influences, why you're doing what you're doing. And that's what I love so much about Talking Smack. If there is a script to it, I give the person kudos who writes it, because it feels very unscripted. They managed to hit that perfectly. And overall, honestly, it's the thing I look forward to most in the week. That's why I asked if you incorporate Talking Smack, because I think if you really if you throw that as part of the entire SmackDown picture, it is a far superior show to Raw.
Yeah, I mean,
because
Smack
Raw does have a pre-show and a post-show. Sorry to cut you off.
I didn't even know Raw had a post-show anymore. So, I mean, I know they had like the backstage fallouts and stuff like that. I would be very shocked if Talking Smack was scripted. I find that hard to believe. I'm sure they have an outline that they go with, but everything feels very natural, and you really believe in what everybody's saying. And Daniel Bryan, like, you actually really see his, like, it's cool to see that he's very happy that with the direction that SmackDown is going in, and he's backing it up, and he takes any opportunity he can to crap on Raw, and it's super entertaining. So
Agreed.
If you haven't checked out Talking Smack yet, if The Miz going off on Daniel Bryan was not the thing to get you to watch it, well, I'm telling you right now, go watch it.
Dean Ambrose this week was fire on it.
Yes, Dean Ambrose had probably one of the best promos of his career, and it was on Talking Smack, so you should go watch it.
Bit of a trend.
So, Monday Night Raw.
Yes.
I think there was a key thing that happened on Raw that had people kind of scratching their heads, and that is Seth Rollins coming to the aid of Roman Reigns at the end of Monday Night Raw. So, you know, we've been speculating for a while that Seth Rollins is heading in a babyface direction. Now, on Twitter, Rollins is trying to clarify that he's enemies with everybody, and he wasn't trying to save Roman.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend,
yes.
right?
So, yes, I suppose. So what would be your justification for this, if there is one, for Rollins getting involved?
Exactly that, the enemy of my enemy, but really it's hard to justify it. That whole thing didn't make sense. Like, oh, hey, let's have the Universal Champion lose against somebody that's not in the match. Like, you are going into your pay-per-view with a loss from your Universal Champion. That's a pretty weak way to go about it. Like, yeah, Roman isn't in the match, whatever. But then, yeah, for Rollins to come out, save Reigns, the whole situation didn't make sense at all to me.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at it and say, all right, well, they had Rollins come out there because they wanted to get him like a babyface pop or whatever. We wanted to get Rollins to be cheered for helping out, even though he's not technically trying to save Roman or whatever. But
it was more to inflict damage on Kevin Owens than to save Roman Reigns.
Which, is this the time to do it? You know, that's the thing, is giving credit to SmackDown once again, when you have storylines that have logic and make sense, it's so much easier to follow along and get into it.
Yes.
But I feel like so many times there's these stories that just leave our heads scratching, and it's a means to an end. So many storylines are just a means to an end so that we can get this result. So that's why we're doing all these logical gaps to get there.
I think the main event of Clash of Champions is a really good example of this, because if you think about Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens for the main championship of a brand or the company, that should be a wet dream of a match. Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens. People should be freaking out about it. But personally, I feel nothing going into that match.
True.
Like, oh, I guess.
It's true.
That's cool.
This is a dream match. Now, I'm not sure, because I'm not an expert on their indie careers, if they've crossed paths before. I know they've...
Probably.
They were both in Ring of Honor.
But this is the WWE stage, right?
Yes. But obviously this is... they've both been heels pretty much the entire time. So they have yet to face off in a one-on-one contest. And this should be a huge deal.
But
and
it's not.
I'm not feeling the hype for Clash of Champions at all.
No, not at all.
I can barely remember the name of it. I'm saying it like Mick Foley, Clash of the Champions. I mean, I'd rather be watching Clash of the Titans at this point. So
don't say things you can't take back.
There's just like there should be more hype, and I really hope that it's one of those shows that we go in not very hyped, but obviously we're going to watch it. I'll actually be giving a review this weekend, so look out for that on our YouTube channel. And I hope this is one where we go in, we're not that hyped, and then we walk away pleasantly surprised at how good the show was. Now,
I hope so, but
the
SmackDown set a huge bar. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, Backlash, I'll be completely honest, that did not have this huge, big event feel to it, but it was a very, very good show. And there was a lot of great matches on it. So I kind of expect this to feel the same. And maybe that's how the single brand pay-per-views are just going to feel from now on. They're going to feel like a really good episode of Raw or SmackDown, which I don't even know what a good episode of Raw feels like anymore, but maybe we'll experience that this Sunday. Moving on, we did
Speaking of hype.
Yes, we did get the debut of the Cruiserweights on Raw this week. And
a hell of a week for the Cruiserweights.
Yes, a hell of a week for the Cruiserweights. Juan posted his review on our YouTube channel for the CWC review, so you can get his full thoughts on the conclusion of that. I am a horrible human being. I've stated before, I have not watched the rest of the CWC. You guys can all come at me with your pitchforks. It is completely justified. But Keith, you have the floor. Before we get into their debut on Raw, just your thoughts on the conclusion of the CWC.
One word, wow. That was 2 hours of something amazing. As far as the CWC as a whole goes, the thing that I love most about it is just, it's this beautiful thing in this beautiful little bubble. I try not to think about it too much in like relation to the Cruiserweights, what's going to happen on Raw. But if you look at the Cruiserweight Classic as just this amazing thing that happened, it is something beautiful that we haven't gotten in forever in the WWE. There are so many answers to what the best match of that event was, and all of them are correct in my opinion. Like you could say Zack Sabre Jr., Drew Gallagher, Ibushi, Brian Kendrick, which is my favorite. Juan had mentioned that his favorite is Ibushi TJ Perkins, which is, holy crap, was that a match? There's just so many good matches, and it's really set a new standard for me when I want to show people why I love wrestling from the in-ring standpoint. I'm just going to point them towards the Cruiserweight Classic. The whole event was so good, and if you haven't seen it, seriously, go watch it.
And
Ryan
you're talking
McNulty.
you're talking directly to me.
See, you're in a position where you have no choice, because in a couple months it's going to be award time, and we're going to be talking a lot about the Cruiserweight Classic then.
It's true. I need to step my game up for our year-end awards in December. So the Cruiserweights debut on Raw to a hell of a damn match to determine the number one contender for the Cruiserweight Championship, the champion TJ Perkins. So the Brian Kendrick ended up coming out the winner. So Keith, I wanted to ask you, how did you like the way that they handled the Cruiserweights debut? Is there anything you would change about it? And I guess we can talk more about when we get to our Clash of Champions predictions. I'm going to keep doing
just say Clash of the Champions.
Yeah,
it's fine.
When we get to our predictions, we'll talk more about the match coming up. But as far as just how they handled the debut of the Cruiserweights, what did you think?
I thought the match was great. Probably the match of the night on Raw, but it was a very splash. It was a big splash of cold water in regards to this is different from the Cruiserweight Classic. Going from that to their debut on Raw was a very different feeling. Just, you know how when somebody debuts in NXT and or from NXT and they have, or it doesn't feel right, like it, as an example, the crowd, they're not connecting with the crowd and you're so used to that. That was a very big prominent thing as far as that debut. It was almost unsettling with Rich Swann specifically for me. And same thing with the, it was
doing
weird
all these
because
dance moves that it's like you can
just
hear
everybody's like, and the Full Sail crowd would be so into it, and that honestly made the entrance one of my favorite parts of the Cruiserweight Classic. But there was just nothing on Raw, and it bummed me out. And there's also a big moment of realization that Mauro Ranallo and Daniel Bryan are no longer calling the Cruiserweights. Like Rich Swann doing a standing 450 completely got blown over, and that's crazy, still a standing 450. And just the little things like that. Like I said, the match was fine, but the overall package of the Cruiserweights felt different. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I still think it's way too early to say.
There's a lot of things that you may not be able to help in this situation. And
totally.
When you do the CWC and you have the Full Sail crowd who they're sitting there and they're just ready to be into whatever you throw at them. Whereas a typical Monday Night Raw crowd, the general WWE audience, is just not nearly as passionate about wrestling. And you're not going to get that same excitement. So that's granted. There's nothing you can do about that. Really, the one thing I would say, and I read a couple reviews on Raw, and the best suggestion I saw was, why not open Raw with the Cruiserweights?
See, in my perfect
ready
world,
to see some action.
In my perfect world, that's exactly what happens. Like, you have the Monday Nitro thing where the Cruiserweights get the first hour, and then it goes to normal Raw.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the time where Raw has just started. The crowd is going to be excited to see anything going on. So you're really going to have the crowd hyped up if you have the Cruiserweights doing the craziest stuff like standing 450s. And instead they were kind of put in a position where they had to bring the crowd back up. Like they were in charge of resurrecting this crowd that was...
They were in the rest period.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that was a tough situation. But you know what? The crowd... They got the crowd by the end of it, so to their credit, I mean, how can you not with the amazing action that took place?
And Ryan, seriously, if you put it at the beginning of the show, where would the Authority / Stephanie McMahon get to put their promos, right? That's a very prestigious spot.
They might have to lose one of their 6 to 7 segments on the entire show. It could be a total disaster. So those are the key points of Raw I wanted to touch on. We'll get more into the feuds going on when we get to our Clash of Champions predictions later on in the show. Hey. So let's dive into SmackDown. The A show. Now, JBL he'd say the A show all the time, and back then it was kind of a joke, but it's legit
kind of
now.
The A show now.
Yeah. So we opened with a contract signing. These always typically go, very well. There's no physical calamities that ever take place ever. Alexa Bliss and Becky had their contract signing for the SmackDown Women's Championship, which will take place at No Mercy in about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Like, we're legitimately getting a pay-per-view every other week now, which is just insane that we're already, we just had Backlash and we're already talking about No Mercy. But Alexa Bliss got some very much needed and deserved mic time because she is quite underrated on the microphone. And I thought this segment was very well done and really kind of fleshed out both Becky and Alexa's characters and where they're coming from. Anything to add on this, Keith? What'd you think?
Agreed, pretty much. I loved it from the fact that Alexa Bliss is all character. That's really where she shined in NXT. And if you give her the mic, she should be able to do some great things with it.
One thing I do like about, once again, I mean, we're going to compare SmackDown and Raw all the time because that's what it's all about now, right? Is I like that this feud is just, it's personal. It's about them. Sometimes on Raw, it gets a little too uppity it's about the women's revolution and it's all preachy. And we're just talking about Alexis saying, I deserve to be champion. I was born to be champion. You don't deserve to be champion. It is a feud between two people. It's not about some big ideal or anything else other than just a personal feud between two people. And I really appreciated that. So, much needed character development from both of them and, pretty awesome.
Agreed.
So the Usos, man, what a 180 that these guys have taken.
I love these new Usos.
I love the Usos. I didn't think I would be saying that in 2016.
Talk to us 6 months ago. Yeah, exactly.
Loving the Usos in 2016? What? Yeah, but it's a legit
good, man.
thing. Yeah. Seriously, they are working like an old school heel tag team, just vicious, aggressive. I love that the storytelling with American Alpha, where this match wasn't only a grudge match because the Usos took American Alpha out of the tournament, even though they won their match. This was also going to be a number one contendership for the tag team titles. So we had more than one reason to care about this match. And the fact that they continued the story with the knee and how American Alpha, like there was a story there where Jason Jordan is saying like, no, I need to stay in the ring. He's trying to protect his partner. Actual storytelling in the match, consistent with previous things. It's awesome.
Honestly, those are my favorite types of matches, even above like Crazy Spot Fest or something like that. When they go into the ring, they tell a story and then you feel good about it at the end of it. With the Usos just being vicious and ruthless with that knee with Chad Gable, and then Jason Jordan having to make the decision of, do I actually tag my partner in? That's not something we see very often on in tag matches in the WWE, because it's always like, let's build up to the hot tag, boom, there it is, and then whatever happens. But he actually had to make like a conscious decision, and it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I can't even tell you the last time if I've ever even seen that exact type of situation occur. And it was really cool to see that. And then I love that they had the Usos show up backstage just to get in the face of Rhino and Slater. Rhino and Slater, who are entertaining as all hell. Rhino still eating the cheese crackers while they're watching on the monitor. It was just super entertaining. And I'm excited to see, I mean, the Usos versus Heath Slater and Rhino. If you
once again, in 2016,
yeah,
if you told me
that match, think about if you put that match on the card a year ago. That would be like ultra pre-show, what the hell is this type of match. But now that's like a legitimate match that everyone is excited for, and that's really cool. I did want to touch on The Miz as well, because I mean, The Miz, it's weird to be excited about the Usos and The Miz, but SmackDown is doing some crazy things, you know? But The Miz just continues to kill it. And him and Dolph Ziggler tore the house down. The Intercontinental title, it really does feel more important than it has in a long time. And it's in part because of what The Miz and Daniel Bryan are doing. And it's interesting that they're continuing this Daniel Bryan-Miz thing. And I don't know the end game of it, but it is really cool to see Miz continue to do Daniel Bryan's moves, kind of mocking him. And it really does suck that Bryan can't fight. But even though I know that, I still like that it's still going on.
Agreed. Whatever they're doing with The Miz right now is just perfect in the way from a Daniel Bryan standpoint. My only knock or against it would be, how long can Dolph Ziggler keep losing? You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think The Miz needs to move on to somebody else after No Mercy. Ziggler,
I would almost say before No Mercy. Have like a surprise opponent for The Miz.
Yeah, I mean, is The Miz, I mean, I don't know if they're even set for No Mercy as opponents.
We don't believe so?
We still get a couple weeks for that, so we don't really know where that's going. But yeah, I mean, Ziggler is really kind of even though he's killing it in the ring, he's kind of that one piece in this that doesn't sit right with me because he just was going for the world title at SummerSlam. Now he can't even cut it for the Intercontinental title. And it looks bad, and everyone's kind of already been at kind of their end of the rope with Ziggler at this point.
Think about Dolph Ziggler over the last couple of years. That's kind of been the same story over and over, where he's just the piece of a story that doesn't fit at all. With Rusev and Lana, he was just like, oh, I guess Dolph Ziggler's here now. And then when he moved to SmackDown, oh, I guess Dolph Ziggler's feuding for the championship now. And then now this, oh, I guess Dolph Ziggler's fighting The Miz. Like, sure, okay.
Yeah, he really is just he's the plug and play guy. You just throw him in there when you need him for a feud. And it's unfortunate because, I mean, the guy has a ton of talent and does deserve better, but it's just a case of being put into unfortunate situations. But either way, I'm excited to see where The Miz goes in this feud.
Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
Ziggler.
What's next for The Miz? Super excited about. The Miz is killing it.
So the way we ended SmackDown was a pretty big shock. We had John Cena and Dean Ambrose facing off for the first time on SmackDown Live. Apparently they have faced off in one-on-one matches before. I don't remember
probably something Shield related.
Yeah, probably during the Shield era. I'm sure there were some one-on-one matches thrown in there. But first time on SmackDown Live. And Dean Ambrose, completely clean as a whistle, pins John Cena.
Very unexpected.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anyone saw that coming. People were more or less expecting maybe an AJ Styles interference. He wasn't on commentary. And AJ obviously did get involved at the end, but not before a completely clean pin on John Cena from Dean Ambrose. So the question is, we're going into a triple threat match at No Mercy with the three of them. There's going to be a one-on-one title match beforehand, just so Ambrose gets his proper singles rematch. One might wonder, is it a better decision to just throw your singles match and then have, try and win a triple threat match instead?
So what you're saying is they have somebody going into a title match looking strong, opposed to what happened on Raw with having your champion lose.
Well, it's not the go home yet on SmackDown.
Which kind of makes it worse from the Raw standpoint.
Now, SmackDown was a better go-home show than Raw, and it's not even the go-home show for SmackDown. But what I was trying to say is, I do want to talk about John Cena and just where they might be going with his character. But I was getting into, like, the kayfabe mindset of, you're going into a triple threat match, you know that's, like, 2 or 3 weeks away, and then next week, you have a singles match for the title. They always talk about how the champion is at a disadvantage in a triple threat match. Is it smart to just throw the singles match, as in lose on purpose, and then strategize to win the triple threat match instead? I don't know. That's
interesting. I never even thought of that.
Because it's a unique situation where you're getting a title match, and then you're guaranteed in a second title match. And I was just thinking from like an actual strategic situation, if you were trying to win, would there be a strategy involved with that? But we'll never know the true answer to that because wrestling
The true answer is probably John Cena will probably get involved with something and then cost Dean Ambrose the match, further building towards the triple threat.
Wow. John Cena interfering. I mean, he knows he's going to get a title match anyway, but we'll have to see what happens. But Cena losing, and the week before, Ambrose kind of emphasizing Cena being a part-timer now and can't cut it anymore. Do you think they're going down a road where Cena's going to start losing a lot of matches?
There is the age-old tradition in wrestling that you go out on your back, right? So maybe Cena's finally on his way out.
That is bold, sir. It is bold to claim that. Because, all right, let me say this. Or did you have more to that thought?
Not really. It's just more of like, Cena's doing more and more things outside of the WWE, right? Being more of an ambassador, less in the ring, more in the media side. So while you still have Cena there in some sort of in-ring capacity, have him put over the AJ Styles, have him put over the Dean Ambroses.
You're almost sounding like the Iron Sheik. Had him put over the AJ Styles.
But yeah, so like while Cena is still there, have him build the talent, have him or lose, because it's still a very big deal when John Cena loses.
Well, what I was thinking with this is, yes, you can accomplish that at the same time as having Cena lose and doing the whole, he can't cut it anymore, because you want to have that dip before he rises for his 16th championship. You know number 16 is coming. It's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And maybe they're having this downfall story so that he can rise up and maybe win at WrestleMania, maybe Royal Rumble if it's going to be earlier than that. But I do like this. That Cena hasn't, like, they always talk about Cena having to overcome the odds, but it's never been a situation where he's actually losing a ton of matches, a ton of important matches, but, multiple pay-per-views in a row before he finally overcomes the odds. And maybe those are odds that will actually be exciting to see get overcome. So we'll have to see how that develops, because that could be an interesting story, and Cena hasn't had a losing streak in quite a while, so we'll have to see what goes on with that.
Indeed. And I do find it funny that I'm more excited for the title match on SmackDown than I am for the pay-per-view title match.
Yeah. I'm excited for both. So we'll have to see how that goes. Anyway, just a quick pause for the cause. Just want to let you guys know, if you'd like to support this show, the best way to do that, to directly support us, is to head over to patreon.com/bytethat, and you can see all the cool perks and rewards that you can get for supporting us. We give shout outs. You get early access to our videos that normally come out on Friday. You can see on Monday that week. So it's really cool stuff. We also have overall goals that we head towards when we get to certain milestones through the number of supporters we have. We'll be able to do some cool things, such as turning this podcast on YouTube into video form, and also looking into a second podcast feed that has all of our extra content currently on YouTube. So some really exciting stuff. This week for our patrons, we'd like to thank our newest patron, Peter D, and would also like to thank our supporter, Derek Wilson. So thank you both for supporting us. Greatly appreciated. We also want to let you guys know, over on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/bytethatcast, we have a video coming up this Friday, available now, early access for Patreon patrons, is 5 terrible WWE gimmicks.
Yep.
There are many, many horrible WWE gimmicks, but we highlight 5 of them in this video and have a little chat.
And there are some doozies.
There's some doozies. Kerwin White is one that we discuss, so if you want to hear our thoughts on that, look for that video
and
this Friday.
Boy, do we have some things to say about old Kerwin.
Yes, we do. Also, this Sunday I'll be doing a video review of Clash of Champions when that concludes the first Raw standalone pay-per-view. So look out for that as well. So before we get into the predictions, there's one topic I wanted to bring up that, to me, really resonated with me. I listened to the Stone Cold podcast, or I should say the Steve Austin show. I do listen to Stone Cold podcasts, but specifically speaking of the Steve Austin show that he does on a week-to-week basis, anytime he has Wade Keller on from Pro Wrestling Torch, I always tune in to listen, because this guy's been watching wrestling. Dude. He's a smart dude. He's been watching wrestling for basically eternity. So he really knows his stuff. And there's one thing he said when he was talking about the most recent NXT takeover, Brooklyn 2. So this is a couple weeks back. But there's one thing he said that just stuck with me and has not left. And that when he was talking specifically about the match Gargano and Ciampa versus the Revival, but this could be specifically talked about in many other situations. He talked about how the Revival style was about wrestling to win and not to get a "this is awesome" chant. As in, the style that they were wrestling was like they were legitimately trying to win the match, as opposed to just trying to do spots to get the crowd excited.
That's really the Revival in a nutshell.
Yes. And what I wanted to bring this to you for was, do you think that this is just a major issue in today's wrestling?
Yes, but I think it stems from the whole heel versus babyface thing, right? Like, it's all a matter of style and really committing to that. This is 100% my opinion, but if you are a babyface, if you are a good guy, you should be looking to entertain the crowd. That is what you should go for, the more "this is awesome" style of wrestling, and then go for the cheers, go for the fun. If you are a bad guy, if you are a heel, you should be going for that win. You should be doing whatever it takes to get that win. If you are like doing this crazy set of moves the intention isn't just to like inflict massive pain on your opponent, and you are getting a "this is awesome" chant, I think you are doing it wrong. Even if it means a more boring match, but it's a more like technical, more story or driven style, I like that better from a heel perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a middle ground that can be met, because I think wrestling has gone far too over to the "this is awesome" chant side, as opposed to the wrestling to win side. And I mean, you can look at it. One key thing I remember from a couple weeks ago was when Bayley was in that triple threat match for the number one contendership, and where one of them, either Charlotte or Sasha, was going for a pin, and Bayley was like halfway or just about ready to climb the turnbuckle to go for like a splash or something. So it was just kind of that leap in. She totally had enough time to run in the ring and break up the pin, but instead
wanted to splash.
But instead let the count continue as she was climbing to go for the diving move. And there's just a lot of logical gaps in there. Now, there's some things you're never going to get to overcome. Like a move like the Red Arrow, right, is a very flashy, beautiful move. There's no logical reason to ever use that move over like a clothesline from hell. It's way less risky, probably just as effective, if not more.
But Neville's a good guy, right? Then that's when he does the Red Arrow. And
I'm just trying to say, logically, there's no logical reason to ever use the Red Arrow if you were in a legitimate match. You know what I mean? Like, if wrestling was real, sorry if I just spoiled, if I spoiled that for a lot of people.
See, that's where the fine line comes in, though. Sorry to just cut you off.
That's what I'm trying to argue. But Hear me out. Let me finish.
Okay.
I'm saying you're never going to be able to get around saying that, like, the Red Arrow is a strategically sound move. So you let that lie where it is. I'm not fighting that battle. I'm not saying a babyface shouldn't do a fun move. I'm talking about how you get to that Red Arrow and the things that happen between there that I think need to be less spotty and more like they're legitimately trying to win a match. Because there's certain things like all these million outside dives, they make no sense. They're flying onto their own partners and stuff all the time. These outside dives make no logical sense whatsoever.
See, at its core, wrestling is entertainment, and it should be entertaining. I think where the problem lies is how you are entertaining people. I don't watch a lot of indie wrestling. It's not something that really appeals to me. But when I do, one of my biggest knocks is, everybody's just trying to get their moves in. And that's really what it feels like more and more every day, even if it doesn't make sense at the time for somebody to do a suicide dive and land on 17 people outside the ring. They'll do it anyway, just because, that's the flashiest thing you can do at a time. I think there is exceptions to it. It's not a hard rule, like in things like a ladder match. That's kind of where that stuff belongs. And in a ladder match, totally fine. But I think it's more about picking a style and really defining a character, that's where all of this comes in. Like, if you are someone like a Neville, who your whole thing is the man that gravity forgot, you can do crazy flips because, hey, gravity forgot about you, so you can just go and do crazy things like the red arrows. You know what I mean?
What happened to Neville?
He got hurt, and then it's just kind of hasn't really like picked up steam since he came back.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think I'm not saying get rid of spots or whatever, but I'm saying that you could do far less spots and actually have better matches, because what happens in between those spots just means that much more. So that's just the thing I wanted to touch on, and I definitely want to
watch the Cruiserweight Classic.
Yeah. Yes.
Seriously,
I totally should.
Seriously. You'll think about this a little differently when you do, especially when you see matches like Zack Sabre Jr. and Drew Gallagher, or Brian Kendrick and Kota Ibushi. Those are matches that really, they hit your point home across, because yes, there are some big spots in those matches. Like Brian Kendrick hit a burning effing hammer in the WWE, which is one of the most, I can still barely wrap my head around it.
The management lost their collective minds when that happened, because he probably wasn't supposed to do that.
But it wasn't like that was a big point in the match. In that match, Brian Kendrick spent the first 5 minutes trying, like, how can I get Ibushi counted out? How can I get him disqualified? Like, how do I get this win in whatever way possible? And then he kind of worked his way towards, I just need to out like crazy Ibushi. That's what I took away from the match. And it really, it made those spots make sense. From a story perspective, and it all like came together in this perfect picture.
And that's all I'm asking for, and I think that's a huge issue with today's WWE style. So anyway, this is a particular topic I'd love to hear some more feedback from, so hit us up on Twitter at Byte That Cast and let us know your thoughts on that. But I think it's about time we jump into Clash of Champions happening this Sunday. Let's get into the predictions. So, on the pre-show, we have Alicia Fox versus Nia Jax.
If Alicia Fox gets a pinfall over Nia Jax, I will eat a hat.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's fairly obvious that this is the first stepping stone on pay-per-view for Nia Jax, unless she had a jobber match on pay-per-view on the last one, I don't remember. But yeah, her first real opponent on a pay-per-view. Expect Nia Jax to win.
She's not like most girls.
That's for damn sure. All right, next up, we have Rusev versus Roman Reigns. I almost said Lana. Champion Rusev versus Roman Reigns for the United States Championship.
Hey, you're getting your closure, Ryan. Yay!
Yeah, the match is finally happening.
I don't know. This match is so weird to me still, and I guess Roman Reigns wins the United States Championship, but that's so weird.
It is really, really weird. So when I thought this match was going to happen at SummerSlam, I was totally like, oh, they're going to find a way to not give the title to Roman because he'll be back in the title scene before you know it. But now something tells me that they might actually give the championship to Roman Reigns. There's a chance.
Maybe in like a John Cena kind of way as well, you know? Like where he is just a super dominant champion that takes on all comers just as kind of something to do in the meantime. But even still then, like, it feels weird.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say, and this is kind of bold, but I'm actually gonna say Rusev wins this. And I really think that if they
is
want
it clean?
Is it clean? No. But I really think if they want to make a statement that, hey, the United States Championship matters, that it's better to have Rusev win than to just give it to Roman. As much as John Cena helped the US title, the second it left him, it really lost its luster. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that
Alberto Del Rio won it?
Yeah, there was not much fanfare to the person who beat him. And I don't know, it seems like they would just be trying to force prestige upon the title if they just hand it to someone who they think is higher on the food chain. So I'm looking at Rusev to win this, although this is one that's pretty close. All right, next up, because I did this totally out of order, we have for the Cruiserweight Championship, TJ Perkins versus Brian Kendrick.
Honestly, this is the match that I'm most excited for, even beyond the whole Cruiserweight classic hype and the whole new Cruiserweight division being around. It's very interesting how they decided to keep TJ Perkins off of Raw this week. Whether that be a good decision or a bad decision,
It is interesting,
but
for sure.
That being said, even though they gave TJ the keys to the freaking kingdom over this last week, they shot him to the moon. All that being said, I still think Brian Kendrick is going to win the Cruiserweight Championship.
Wow.
I think it builds a way more interesting story to have Brian Kendrick do Brian Kendrick things to have him win the Cruiserweight Championship, and then have TJ chase him for it, and then show the world why TJ is as special as he is.
Well, I'm going to go with TJ Perkins. Of course, I got to go back and do my homework on the CWC. This keeps coming. Me not watching this has come back to bite me in the ass way more than I thought.
It's a burden at this point. The fact that you haven't watched it.
It is my curse. So yeah, feels bad, man. That being said, Brian Kendrick, someone I am familiar with, is a great first opponent. He is someone the WWE Universe is... At least most of them are familiar with. So he really makes that great first opponent, that great kind of transition, so that you have kind of the new school with TJ Perkins, and then somebody familiar for WWE audiences in Brian Kendrick. So he's really the perfect foil for TJ Perkins' first challenge. Like you said, they put so much into the hype train this week for TJ Perkins. It would be very difficult for me to believe that they would have him lose. So I'm really expecting Perkins to win. Moving on, the final match in the Best of 7 series that went exactly how I predicted it would go. Keith, who's going to win?
You're telling me that there was a chance that it didn't go to 7 matches because it always happens in wrestling
but it went exactly as I said, where Sheamus won the first 3 and then we're looking at a reverse sweep.
And I think it's going to be exactly that, a reverse sweep. Cesaro wins in the end.
Yep, Cesaro wins. I love how this week he commented that he also doesn't like his theme music. So let's change that. It's terrible. He's got a James Bond gimmick, for God's sakes. Give him something more Bond-like.
Is it bad that I honestly don't hear the music that much anymore? Like, I've blocked it out at this point. Like, oh, okay, Cesaro's coming out. He has a cool entrance. I still love the whole James Bond thing going on, but the music, I don't really hear.
It's apparently like similar to one of Dean Malenko's themes or something, minus all the annoying sirens and stuff going on.
It's pretty close.
I've listened to it. It sounds surprisingly similar.
Sell me a hot dog, Ryan. I spoke to this chair.
You spoke to the chair, right. Okay, so Cesaro wins, and maybe he gets a title shot. I think that was the stipulation, but they're kind of like...
They were so finicky about it. They said like a title shot down the line or something like that.
Next up, we have Sami Zayn versus Chris Jericho. Jericho, who's probably the biggest highlight of Raw lately. Had a real callback to his famous WCW naming his holds list. Instead, he had a list of grievances against Mick Foley. Anyway, this is a match that I'm pretty excited for. So Sami Zayn versus Chris Jericho.
I think this is going to be an incredible match. I would think that Chris Jericho is kind of in a very similar position as John Cena's in right now, minus the whole eventually going to win the world title aspect of it, where Chris Jericho's just kind of there to help build the future talent for when he's not there. And for that reason, I think that Sami Zayn is going to win this match.
Really? I'm actually going to go with Jericho to win the first. I don't think this is a one-off feud. I think this is going to go maybe three pay-per-views. I mean, they're so damn close together now. Why not? And I'm expecting Jericho to win this first one. Jericho, a guy now with 2 brands, I really think he should become champion again at some point. Because we were all kind of questioning Jaredad early on. I mean, it's crazy to think like 6 months ago, we were all a little iffy on Jericho, but he knows how to reinvent himself and make himself interesting, and he is just crushing it right now. He's so aware of the audience and how he's portraying himself. It's unbelievable. So I'm really looking forward to this match. I expect it to be amazing. And yeah, Jericho will get the win.
All right.
Next up, the women's championship match. Charlotte defends against Sasha Banks and Bayley. So we thought we were going to get Charlotte versus Bayley.
What a cluster.
Then we thought we were going to get Charlotte versus Sasha Banks. Then Dana Brooke kind of comes to bat accidentally for Bayley and gets her inserted into the match unintentionally. So now we have a triple threat match that we thought it was going that way because we were iffy on the double pin last week, and I guess it's happening now. So
I don't know.
The match we thought and didn't think was going to happen is happening.
Yay? I don't even know how to feel about this, honestly.
That's the only response to my just verbal diarrhea I just spat out there.
But I think Charlotte retains through this whole mess of a situation where, yes, Sasha's back, and yes, they're building momentum for Bayley, but I think the next time Charlotte loses, it's going to be a one-on-one definitive situation. So probably some craziness will happen, and then Charlotte will probably pin Bayley.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, the whole thing where they had to take the title off of Sasha, and I'm sure at the time they thought she was going to have to be away a lot longer. But at this point, if you've given it back to Charlotte, it seems weird to just pull it off of her this soon. So I'm with you. It's probably much better served in a one-on-one situation. And so Charlotte will most likely get the win here.
Agreed.
Moving on to the Tag Team Championship match. The New Day versus The Club, or Gallows and Anderson. They're not really calling themselves The Club anymore. One thing I wanted to bring up before this is how much has the New Day cooled off in the recent weeks?
Really, like so much. But I mean, every team has peaks and valleys, right? It can't be a home run every single week.
Yeah. It could just be the case of, I mean, we got a lot of New Day for a long time, and maybe they're just kind of in a lull period because you don't want to get completely burnt out on them. They've been a team for longer than most teams ever get to last. So I could see
here's the thing about wrestling. You can have a low period. It sucks for a while, but we as wrestling fans forget about it instantly once it's over.
True. And this could be a straight up strategic decision of we got a lot of New Day promos for a long time, and if they want them to stay popular baby faces, that you can't be too excessive all the time. So
exactly.
Even though, I mean, it's not like the New Day hasn't been completely off TV, but they've certainly been less of a prime focus as of late, and maybe that's for the better. But anyway, I think this is where I've been predicting it a couple times, but I truly believe this is where the New Day will lose their tag team championships. And Gallows and Anderson, I definitely think they need this to stay relevant. Of course, they've had some cringy segments with the whole old day situation. So I'd be happy to see them win the championships and maybe stop talking about balls a little bit. And move on.
That'd be great.
Move on to more serious things.
I totally agree. Yeah. I think it's time for the New Day to lose the titles. Not necessarily like break up or anything that drastic, but I think it's time to have them chase the titles. And it seems like a very good time for Gallows and Anderson to become the champions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they should chase. They should chase them again once they lose them, try and get the rematch and all that stuff. But it would be cool to see the New Day kind of not break up, but maybe, hey, Kofi's gonna go for the US title or something, and Big E's doing this, and Xavier's off feuding with somebody. They're still together, but maybe two of them are doing one thing and one of them's doing another thing, and you still see them together, but there's different feuds going on. I mean, the roster, you with the roster split, you have time to do things like that. So it'd be interesting to see if they tried something like that. Next match up, And the main event, we have
Yay.
Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins for the WWE Universal Championship.
I'm just so bummed out. I feel nothing for this match. It just makes me so sad.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm going to play the Triple H card again. I think Triple H interferes in this match, finally giving us something to do with that feud or whatever they're going to do with it. Have Triple H cost Seth Rollins the match. Kevin Owens picks up the win.
Yeah, I think it's a little early to be, taking the title off of Kevin Owens, especially this is a new championship belt, the WWE Universal Championship. We already had a very short-lived
we've already had
champion.
two champions.
Yes, we've had a super short-lived champion in Finn Balor, and I think it's important to set an example by having a long-reigning champion, and I'd like to see that out of Kevin Owens. He's certainly capable of handling it, and Triple H is probably going to get involved. He's been silent for, several weeks now, and I'm sure this is finally when he'll interfere, and then we'll get that 20-minute Triple H promo to open Raw to finally get those answers you've been desperately waiting for.
We better at this point. Come on.
They're just trying to draw it out, and maybe they'll draw it out even longer, but I would be shocked if they did. So maybe, Keith, you'll finally get the answers you've been waiting for.
And then I'll be disappointed about them, probably.
So that concludes our predictions. If you thought our predictions were crazy, or you agree with us, or any other thing in between, make sure to let us know. Either comment on YouTube, send us a tweet. And speaking of interacting with us, I think it's time we move on to the questions. Remember, you can send us questions through email, bytethatcast@gmail.com, Twitter @bytethatcast, and even just by commenting on this video on YouTube. We love to interact with you guys and answer your questions. So without further ado, Keith, take it away.
All right. So some great questions this week. Our first one comes in from Marco S., and I'm going to add a follow-up question from Ryan D. It's like a 2-for-1. Yeah.
Woo!
So the question is, hey guys, podcast question from Germany. Who from the New Day will capture a singles title first after they split up? And will it be as a face or a heel? And then our follow-up question, is the New Day getting old for you guys? So lump it together.
Cool, you're from Germany. Hey, if Pokemon Go trading happens, please trade me a Mr.
Indeed.
Mime. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway.
You need to stop this Pokemon Go thing.
I'm at 128.
This is not a platform. Wow, 128, that's actually super impressive.
Yeah, 128 out of 142 you can get within the United States or any other region.
But this is not a platform to further your Pokemon going.
It's true. It's
the
true.
New Day. Who will win?
The New Day. Okay, Big E. If singles title, I'm thinking Big E. Kofi Kingston has obviously had plenty of singles titles throughout his career. I think the singles guy that they want to have to really build once the New Day splits up is absolutely Big E. This is a guy who can be a main eventer, certainly has the charisma and the wrestling ability. Just stop doing that damn spear through the ropes so you don't kill yourself, for God's sakes. And I think Big E will be a face. We saw him way back in NXT with that 5-count thing, and that was freaking awesome. And I'm not saying to go back to that, because I think in a lot of ways he's evolved beyond something like that. Not saying you couldn't still incorporate it. But either way, Big E is absolutely the guy.
Agreed. It has to be Big E of everybody that's going to... Well, you know what? First of all, let me say, I think it's going to be Big E, but then I start to think about what Big E was like in his last singles run and how much of a train wreck that was. If you don't know what I mean, go back and watch matches like Big E versus Titus O'Neil from Smackdown. I don't remember exactly when, but boy, was that a stinker of a match. So I would like to think that Big E has improved as a singles competitor during this time with the New Day, but there's always that wonder in the back of my mind, like, is that something that will actually come into the fold once the New Day actually breaks up? Which real talk, I don't want the New Day to break up ever. Have them stay together forever, even if it gets a little old and a little stale for a while. And to answer the follow-up question, no, I don't think that the New Day is getting old at all. It's everybody has some ups, everybody has some downs. They're in a down right now. 3 weeks from now, they'll probably be in an up, and it'll be fine. But
I didn't exactly touch on that, but I think it's kind of more what we were speaking about earlier, which is they've cooled off, and I think the focus isn't quite on them right now, but I think they will bounce back easily. They're too entertaining not to.
It's a little too early to use the word old, in my opinion, because they're still
especially because we're just too close to the whole old day segment, and we're just still shell shocked from that.
That is true. Ryback came back. He shell shocked us. It was a bad time. So thank you for the question. Our next one comes in from Daniel F., who asks, as things stand right now, who do you see as the 2017 Royal Rumble winner? And should Ty Dillinger enter the match as number 10? Absolutely.
Yes, that is actually amazing.
From this Royal Rumble and everyone until he's in the Hall of Fame, he should enter as number 10.
I think it'd be kind of sad about that. You feel like there's some conspiracy going on, but it is very fitting. Who do I see as the 2017 Royal Rumble winner? That's now with the brand split. I mean, that is just unbelievably tough.
I'm
going to say John Cena. Maybe this is part of the whole journey to championship number 16, and maybe that's going to be a disappointment to a lot of people, but that's the only one that really is the most obvious to me.
See, to me, I'm kind of going along the lines of Seth Rollins winning the 2017 Royal Rumble. He'll probably be kept busy with Triple H over the next few months, and then maybe it'll end somewhere around Survivor Series or the December pay-per-view, whatever that's called at this point, and then go into the Royal Rumble and go into WrestleMania as the good guy shooting for the title. And I'd really like to see that. It'd be cool. So thank you for the question. Our next one comes in. I left it hanging
there a little bit.
Oh, no problem. I was going to get there eventually. So our next question comes in from Collector 9000, who asks, what is the worst pay-per-view name that is not a gimmick pay-per-view? In his opinion, it's ECW One Night Stand, because they had that pay-per-view multiple times. So let me start by saying, Collector 9000, you can have a one-night stand multiple times. I'm just going to throw that out there. So I think that part of it is justified.
Yep. You know what? Keith makes a good argument there. So, I'm not going to touch that one. I think some really dumb names were like Fully Loaded is kind of a dumb name.
Oh, that's so dumb.
Yeah, Over the Limit was probably my least favorite. And what's another one? Capital Punishment's kind of dumb too.
It was cool because weren't they in Washington one year and it made sense?
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's why they did it. But I don't know.
A couple that come to mind for me are Taboo Tuesday, even though that's more of a gimmick pay-per-view. Like, oh, what's so taboo about this Tuesday, except for the fact it's two letters two words that start with T.
Why is that so bad?
Mm-hmm. December to Dismember. Once again, it's just like, oh, hey, what's another word that starts with D? Because we have a December pay-per-view. Dismember. All right, it's December to Dismember.
That's another one that's kind of cringe.
Yeah,
I think it's a good what is it? Plethora of names.
Sure, it's a plethora. We'll go with it. So thank you for the question.
Cornucopia of terrible pay-per-view names.
Indeed, and a cornucopia of great questions this week. Much like this next one from Kyle K, who asks, "Hey guys, great show as always. Question. What is your favorite wrestling pop culture mashup? Alexa Bliss doing the Harley Quinn thing is just wonderful. Thanks again for all the entertainment over the years. I appreciate it." Well, thank you, Kyle K. Thank you.
Well, I guess you could kind of count the whole Seth Rollins Daily Show thing as kind of pop culture and wrestling
that was so
combined.
good.
And so many people hate on Jon Stewart, and as someone who, I mean, I didn't watch The Daily Show regularly as much as I probably should have, but I was always very entertained by The Daily Show, and I think Jon Stewart is hilarious. And I thought he was excellent in WWE. Now, one could argue it's maybe not the best idea to have him interfering in title matches.
You should go back and watch last year's SummerSlam.
Well, yeah, okay. So I thought it was hilarious though, because just as a fan of Jon Stewart, the fact that I was saying the fact that I could say to myself that John Cena didn't win because Jon Stewart,
a chair shot from Jon Stewart.
Yeah, a chair shot from Jon freaking Stewart is kind of hilarious and amusing to me. And all the backstage segments they did, I just thought his delivery and everything was just so hilarious.
Agreed. Those segments with Seth Rollins leading up to it, where he was calling out he made his own set and he was just taking shots at Jon Stewart. That stuff was so good.
Yeah, and I thought that was just a great combination of and that was something usually WWE is way behind the times on pop culture. And that was one thing where Jon Stewart had just left The Daily Show, or it was ending at the time, even during The Daily Show while it was still going on. So that was just really cool and relevant at the time. Another thing is K-Fed. Let's talk about K-Fed, man.
Let's talk about Kevin Federline. Let's do it.
Yeah, now, Kevin, I mean, this is kind of turning into celebrities almost more than pop culture. I mean, all right, before we get into K-Fed.
It's one of the same, right?
Yeah, I mean, hey, before we talk about K-Fed, New Day does this every week with just bringing up and referencing pop culture. So I think they do a very good job with that. But K-Fed, this guy who nobody even knows who this guy is anymore at this point, but he was married to Britney Spears for a cup of coffee, and he ended up having a feud with John Cena.
And a successful music career to go along with it.
Yeah, so if you want to call it that. Now, so K-Fed was actually somewhat maybe relevant at the time of this feud, and he had a legit feud with John Cena and honestly held his own.
He totally did, and this is going to be a weird sentence, but I would say that was the feud that put Johnny Nitro / John Morrison on the map.
And it's crazy to think that Kevin Federline was instrumental in John Morrison's career, but it's really true.
I can still rap all the words to America's Most Hated. I won't do it on the show, but I can.
But you are the talk of the town.
And that's the reason why they stare. But for my answer, there's a lot of bad that happened during the...
What Strength by RoboCop.
Woohoo! What Strength by RoboCop. Surprisingly not going to WCW with this one. But there's a lot of bad that happened during that era where every other week there was a special guest host for Raw. We have the Muppets, and then this, and then that. But the one week that stands out, and is still one of my favorite things from that time, is when Bob Barker was the special guest host of Raw, and they did The Price is Right on Raw, and Chris Jericho was in the middle of super serious, angry Chris Jericho, and he was just getting into fights with Bob Barker, and it was the best. I love that episode. That was
amazing. And you know what? There is one thing, and interestingly enough, it kind of goes back to the RoboCop thing, where pop culture and wrestling did create arguably one of the best mashups, not matchups, and that is with Sting. I mean, Sting's Crow character is a mashup of the Crow comic
Scott
book.
Hall watched the movie The Crow and said, "Sting, brother, you should do that." And so,
yeah. And it's hard to argue that is not one of the best mashups ever, because that created a Hall of Fame level talent character. He was already a big superstar before then, but that was the character that really just put him in the forefront and became one of the biggest wrestlers of all time.
It's true, and really, with no Stormtrooper helmets, we would have never had the Shockmaster. So
that's true.
There you go.
Equally as successful.
Equally as successful. A real 15 seconds of fame there. But nonetheless, thank you for the question. Our next one comes in from Bullet Club versus The Shield, who asks, hey guys, imagine a female-dominated group in the WWE along the lines of The Shield. Who would you like to see in that group? I would have chosen Caitlyn, Paige, and Natalya.
Now, it's interesting you bring this up, because I don't know if they're still floating around on YouTube, but legitimately, there was a video which did include Paige, and I forget who the two other female individuals were, but they were the original Shield. They were doing these promos in NXT, like, developmental, and, like, maybe originally the Shield was supposed to be this female group, but it was pretty crazy.
Imagine how that would have changed the long-term history of the WWE.
Yes. So if we're talking a legit
I hate that line so much.
Group of females that are just going to wreck everybody, you got to put Nia Jax in there. I think she's a given, and as like the enforcer. Then I do really like Paige as kind of the mastermind behind it. She'll fit that kind of dark theme.
Can we go from any time frame?
Let's go with current day, but you could pick Raw or SmackDown.
Oh, okay.
So this is like feasibly a group that could happen today. And you know what? I do like Natalya in the group as well, so I would kick Caitlyn. I guess you included Caitlyn, but I would I'd kick Caitlyn out for Nia Jax and throw in Natalya.
Indeed. Honestly, I would argue that this group already happened, and it was the Submission Sorority / Team PCB. Where
that was a real domination group, all right.
Yeah. But if you look at the current landscape of the WWE, you have the current champions on both shows, and then Paige, who for a while was like the dominant force in the WWE as far as the women's division goes. So I would seriously already happened. The Submission Sorority. And also the best name of a tag or a group
Google
ever.
Just don't Google, actually. Never mind.
No, don't. Unless safe search is on. You know what? Maybe don't even do it then. I can't.
Yeah, that's even still risky.
Yeah. So thank you for the question. Our final question of the show comes in from Ashley H. And she asks, what is the perfect pizza in your eyes? It's a doozy of a question.
Yeah, the perfect pizza, first of all, would not be in my eyes, because that feels very painful. But my ideal pizza that I would eat...
I never even thought of it. Like, what's the perfect pizza to put in your eyes? Oh, that sounds like the worst. I guess
the one with definitely no spicy stuff, because that would burn like hell.
That's a spicy meatball.
Yes, it is. It's a spicy eyeball. Now, my perfect pizza, I think, would have to have, and assuming that I'm not going to die after I eat it, we would go pepperoni, sausage, bacon, and onions.
I'm with you till the onions. I don't like onions.
I love onions, man, and they are delicious on pizza. So those are my three. Ugh. So basically meat lovers with some onions. And ham's all right, so I'd probably leave the ham off.
So whenever I decide to go full bore on a pizza, it is a thin crust with extra sauce, pepperoni, back bacon, sometimes sausage. I can take it or leave that, and banana peppers. Banana peppers are primo on a pizza.
Everyone's been raving about the banana peppers lately. I gotta try those.
It'll change.
I've never had a freaking banana pepper in my life.
They will change your life. I'm at a point where, like, if I'm not going crazy on the diet, I will just eat banana peppers with a fork. They are so good.
Now, you said back bacon. Are you talking like American bacon? Is that what that is?
No, that's a side bacon. This is like Canadian bacon. Like, it's almost like ham, but it tastes like bacon.
You Canadians, man. We just have one bacon here, and it's phenomenal. And then everything else we call ham. Either way, I would go ham on that pizza, that's for sure. So, that does it for all the questions. And that does it for this week's edition of the podcast. So we want to thank all of you for tuning in. Just a reminder, we got Clash of Champions this Sunday, which means I'll be doing a review over on the YouTube channel that you can check out Sunday night. Don't forget to check out some of our other content on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast, including this Friday, where we are doing our video of 5 terrible WWE gimmicks, so you'll definitely want to check that out. If you'd like to directly support us, the best way to do so is to head over to patreon.com/ByteThat, and you can check out all the sweet rewards and goals that we're heading towards. We want to grow more as a channel, with the hope, hey, maybe someday we could be doing this full time, and supporting us definitely goes a long way towards that goal. If you'd like to interact with us in any way, the easiest way to do so is to head over to bytethat.com, and you can see all the avenues in which you can contact us to leave questions on the show or just say hi. So that's going to do it for this week. Thank you guys again for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.